Yes, I just turned it on before anybody. Look, I didn't hear me. Some programming notes. The material for next week is at the welcoming desk. Please, one per family, because Anna Lois and a few others went to a lot of trouble printing this up for me. It was hard work. I mean, it's got 120 pages. So we decided only 25, and that way husbands and wives can pretend that they like each other and share. So get one for next week. This is material that I wrote 20, 25 years ago, never done anything with it, never used it in a class except for did one lecture from part of it. The Providence of God with special emphasis on the book of Acts as we continue to study grace this quarter, this particular aspect of providential grace. So get that. Hopefully it'll be a beneficial study. If you think it's worthwhile, let me know, and maybe I'll get that in book form. I've just never done anything with it. Another little thing, if you're on Facebook, and then we'll get to Judges just a second, but if you're on Facebook and you are on members of certain community pages, like Hip White House, Hip Millersville, whatever, monitor them, because every once in a while somebody will put on there, I am looking for a church. And people just start going boom, 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 boom. And, you know, I've basically, tried to answer them differently than others. One, I'm trying to be more biblical, I think, but also to get their attention, and sometimes just to get their attention. It's like one time I posted, instead of looking at a place that is going to just give you everything you want, consider going to a place where you can serve and help other people. And so they didn't come, but I thought it was a good thing to say. I tried a lighthearted one yesterday. They work on Sunday mornings, so they're looking for a church for Sunday night, and I said, Sunday nights at 5 p.m., if you can stand the preacher, the rest of the church is great. I can say that because I'm the preacher. And then Millersville Church of Christ. So if you're on Facebook, monitor them and start inviting people when they add that. On the book of Judges, this is a lot also. But I have not handed you out all of the material that I've worked on. If anybody wants a full copy of either one of these electronically, because I've already sent out 3 electronically for the Providence of God. If anybody wants the electronic version of Judges, let me know. If you want me to make a paper copy, and I'll do it myself, because that was a lot of work that Anna Lois did, and I will make you your own copy. But all the work or paper we did hand out, that's still a good amount of material for Judges for you to put in your own personal library. We are on our next to last class, and we are on the next to last chapter, which means for the first time ever, I succeeded in getting done on the day I'm supposed to. That doesn't usually happen with me. I'm not the most organized in organizing those things. Okay, Judges 20. When we look at Judges 20, I want you to think, what does this remind you of in Judges? So look to the past. What does this remind you of in the future of Israel? And ask the question, was Israel wrong in what they did? And we're going to see that that's a possibility when we compare Judges chapter 20 to Judges chapter 1. You're also going to see a hint as to time, and there's some question about that we will get to. I don't know when Judges 20 happened. The way that the book is written is not necessarily to give you a chronological study, except for with the Judges. It's more to give you a biographical overview of the downfall, the sins of Israel. As we said in the introduction class, the book of Judges is not like most books or monuments that just lay out all of the victories. Judges lays out all of their flaws and faults, which makes the Bible unique. Okay, so I'm going to start reading and making comments, and then you feel free to jump in anytime. Now remember, look to the past, look to the future. Was Israel wrong in what they were doing? All the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba and from the land of Gilead came out, and the community assembled as one body before the Lord at Mizpah. Okay, when you look at verse 1, does it sound like things are going to go really well? Yeah, they're assembled before the Lord. Okay? Verse 2. Oh, let me stop. Verse 1, it looks like everything's going to go well. If you've read chapter 20, does everything go well immediately? No. That's one of the things that makes chapter 20 a conundrum. Verse 2, the leaders of all the people and of all the tribes of Israel presented themselves in the assembly of God's people, 400,000 foot soldiers. Now, when it says all of the tribes of Israel, which one is going to be missing from that? Benjamin. Sometimes the word all is more broad and general than specific. The Benjamites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. The Israelites asked, tell us, how did this evil happen? Okay, so they are at Mizpah. They are assembled before the Lord. And it says in verse 1, all the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba and from the land of Gilead came out, because that seems to be one of the centers here. Verse 4, the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, answered. Okay, I'm curious. My verse says murdered. My translation, what does your translation say? Murdered? Okay. Because there was a question whether or not the concubine was dead when he did that atrocious act of cutting her up. The way he's telling the story, she was. Because she was dead. I went to Gibeah in Benjamin with my concubine to spend the night. Citizens of Gibeah came to attack me and surrounded the house at night. They intended to kill me, but they raped my concubine and she died. Then I took my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout Israel's territory because they have committed a wicked outrage in Israel. Look, all of you are Israelites. Give your judgment and verdict now. Now that last part goes back to chapter 19 and the last phrase in verse 29. Think it over, discuss it, and speak up. Now, why would they need to think it over, discuss it, and speak up and give their judgment and give their verdict? Think about what's one of the main themes of the epilogue. There was no king. And everybody did what was right in their own eyes. I keep telling you, don't ask questions I don't know the answer to. Apparently, you're not listening to me. Everybody turn to 2 Samuel chapter 2. Oh, I've got it. Okay. Leon, you have an assignment. Next week, tell us why they went to Mizpah. We'll see how many more questions he asks. No. It will talk about the ark, but the ark was originally in Shiloh, but it did get moved around, so that's probably why it got moved up to Mizpah. Why it got moved to Mizpah, I don't know. In 2 Samuel chapter 2, help me find it because I can't find the verse. We've got Ishbosheth. There we go. Verse 8. Now, when Saul died, I think we often think David became king over all of Israel. He didn't. The kingdom was divided. We often talk about the divided kingdom after Solomon, and it was two solid divided kingdoms. Here, it's a divided kingdom also, and it's going to be a civil war to see which king will be reigning. Abner, son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Saul's son Ishbosheth, and moved him to Mahanaim. He made him king over Gilead. Okay, what's going on in this whole epilogue? It's about Gilead, right? And Azriel, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, all over Israel. And so when you look at who followed Ishbosheth and not David, one of the tribes is Benjamin. And here we've got problems with Benjamin. Saul was the first king. He was from what tribe? Benjamin. It is my opinion, as I stated before, one of the reasons why Judges was written was to show Israel that they needed a king, and it would be written by Samuel. Even though he was against it, he realized that after God appointed somebody that they needed a king, but Saul was a failure. What kind of king would they need? And David was a man after God's own heart. And so we see Benjamin often in Judges put in a bad light. I think it's because this is, in a sense, a political book saying, hey, don't follow Saul. He was a failure. Follow David. He's the one that is the king that you need because he was a king after God's own heart. Okay, let's continue. Verse 8. Then all the people stood united and said, none of us will go to his tent or return to his house. Okay, so they decided, and they're united in it. So I want you to keep asking this question. Were they wrong in what they decided to do? Because remember, the epilogue of Judges is about how many failures there are. Remember the fourfold failures? The first one is religion. The second one is morality. The third one is family. The fourth one is society, which leads to the downfall of the nation. So were they wrong? Verse 9. Now this is what we will do to Gibeah. We will attack it. By lot, we will take 10 men of every 100 from the tribes of Israel, and 100 out of every 1,000, and 1,000 out of every 10,000 to get provisions for the troops when they go to Gibeah and Benjamin, to punish them for all the outrage they committed in Israel. Okay, so again, we're going to ask, were they right in deciding to punish? Right. Let's keep going. So all of the men of Israel gathered, united against the city. Then the tribes of Israel sent men throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What is this evil act that has happened among you? Hand over the wicked men in Gibeah so we can put them to death and eradicate evil from Israel." Well, was that a good thing? Okay. That's been seen before. Can you think of an example of where an evil man had to be handed over, had to be discovered? Yeah, Achan. Okay. So that part, it seems like this is not just a vengeful act. It's not a riot. Are they organized in how they're going about this? Yeah, very much so. Then they try diplomacy. Hand over the guilty ones. This is a conundrum. It's a difficult chapter, because I keep asking, were they right? And I'm trying to figure that out myself. Some things I would say yes. Okay. Verse 13, after they asked for the Benjamites to be handed over, but the Benjamites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. Were the Benjamites right? Nope. They were trying to protect who? Evil men. Okay. They were also trying to protect the people from Gibeah. Were in what tribe? Benjamin. They're trying to protect not just evil men. On a personal level, they're trying to protect their people. Have you ever known somebody, especially when it gets involved in family, that protects those that are wrong within their family simply because they're family? Yeah. They're wrong in what they're doing. But all through this, I've tried to make applications to us today. And that is one of them. Do not protect those that are wrong just because they're family or you're related to them. Anybody got any comments, questions, or disagreements so far? Leon?
Answer.
Go for it.
His people gathered at Millersville for spiritual and national significance, including acts of collection of repentance, fasting, and confession to God. So if you go and look through Judges, you'll see Millersville announced 11 times, and about 8 of them they were seeking a place for divine guidance or other things. They just gathered there.
Good job. He didn't pay attention to a single thing I said while he was researching, but good job. No, I'd rather you do the research. That was more important than what I said. Okay, verse 14. Instead, the Benjamites gathered together from their cities to Gibeah to go out and fight against the Israelites. On that day, the Benjamites mobilized 26,000 armed men from their cities, besides 700 fit young men rallied by the inhabitants of Gibeah. There were 700 fit young men who were left-handed among all these troops. All could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. I did a sermon this year on David and Goliath and part of grace, and talked about practical grace. And generally, we find that David and Goliath is generally pictured as the underdog versus the one that can't be beat, and that's what it appears. But when you really think about it, David was like a sniper. And if you are a sniper, do you have to get close to the enemy? No. And so that was an advantage. And how good are these slingers, shot slingers, okay, slingshotters? How good are they? They could hit a hair. What now?
More like Johnny's arrow person Wednesday night.
It is a piece of war equipment that you need a lot of training in and expertise. And I'm sure, throw it at a stone is, throw it at the hare and hit it. It might be a little bit exaggeration, hyperbole, but the point is, these guys are good.
Why would 26,000 men go to war against 400,000?
There is a history of smaller armies going against bigger armies. Didn't they make a movie about that called 300 or something like that? And it's, what?
They wrote some books about it first.
Okay, they wrote some books about it first. The Spartans held off a great army, just 300 of them. And help me with my recollection of the facts. I think eventually all 300 died, but the army did not advance. Is that correct? At that time?
They come to the rear, and the Spartans retreated to kind of this mound area, and that's where they died to a man. And then the Persians made their way to Athens and burned it down to the ground. But the Athenians had managed to evacuate the city and escape, in which they rallied like another year or two later, and then they defeated the Persian army at Plataea. Where once again, the Spartans were the ones who did most of the bulk of the fighting and achieved the victory.
I appreciate Johnny filling in the few, facts that, I left out. That's cool. That's cool. During the Civil War, I believe also, often the South, their armies were smaller than the North. And is that true? Good. Yes, got that one right. And so why would these smaller armies go against these bigger armies? They believed in what they were fighting for. What? Matter of pride. Here's the one I'm thinking of. They were protecting their own.
The same theory is siege was Sodom. The people on top of that mountain kept the Romans from getting up that mountain for quite a while, even though eventually they were overrun. But it was also a huge loss, from a technical standpoint for the Romans.
And everybody at Masada died except for one. I think it was the leader who said, let's all commit suicide. And then somehow he survived it. Okay, Jerry, then Daryl.
Well, back to what Frank said, God was with them too, if God is with them. And we just studied back in chapter 7 how that Gideon took 300 men and beat Midian. So that was pretty good.
Yeah. Daryl.
They took 26,000 men. They were from the tribe of Benjamin, which was supposed to be God's people.
Right. All were supposed to be God's people.
But then, earlier in the Judges, there was a numerous amount of men there, and God told them they had too many, so they had to take a bunch away, and then he told them again they had too many. He took a bunch away. So in this, God was with them.
Well, that's something for us to examine. There's a lot in this chapter that is confusing, and we're going to see, and I'll go ahead and tell you, the Benjamites are going to win. But remember, they were protecting somebody that was evil, right? And the second battle, the Benjamins are going to win. Why is that happening? And Judah keeps saying, Israel keeps saying, should we go? We inquire of the Lord, should we go? Oh yeah, go. And they fail. This is part of the conundrum of this chapter. But okay, let's put it in the broader spectrum of Judges. Remember, in Judges chapter 1, Israel was fighting against who? Judges 1 and chapter 2. The Canaanites. Okay? You remember that? And all the various ones, they were conquering the land. So they were united, fighting against the Canaanites. In Judges chapter 12, who are they fighting against? One of their own. I'm sorry, chapter 20. It's got a 2 in it. Chapter 20. Who are they fighting against? Their own. Okay? Again, when you look at Judges, and this is how we've been studying Judges, not just in segments. When you look at Judges as a whole, this is the disintegration of the nation. They're not focused on fighting against the outsiders. They are now fighting their own.
Benjamin one was that they didn't send the 400,000 against them. They just sent Judah.
Well, there's going to be strategy going on. And part of that strategy is going to be, inquiring of the Lord. And we're going to see what happens there. But I wanted you to focus on this aspect of this chapter. They're now fighting against themselves. Now, let's make a little application. If a church wants to grow, what's going to, at least one thing that's going to keep that church from growing? Internal strife, that's right. What'd you say, Sherilyn? Lack of unity, okay? When you got a lot of internal strife going on, you're fighting against each other. Who have you stopped focusing on? The lost. Now you're just fighting among yourselves. Have churches ever done that? Really? You mean churches have fought? We know it happens. It should not happen. The Bible continually condemns it, and yet we don't listen, do we? we in general, I understand. Yes, Mark.
I think in the end, I'll come out and watch what really happens, but we find that when you think about a group of people winning a battle, they think they've got the upper hand. They feel like that they are in control. But when it's all said and done, God had told them long ago, clean out the evil from amongst you. And so when they get down to the end, look at what happens and how it all seems to be where God wants to take it. You may win the battle, but you're not ready for the war yet.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared for the war, and God's going to be with you when it's wartime.
You can lose a battle, but win the war. Let's continue. Okay. Verse 17, the Israelites, apart from Benjamin, mobilized 400,000 armed men, every one an experienced warrior. They set out, went to Bethel. Bethel is a name that means house of God. The Israelites asked, who is to go first to fight for us against the Benjamites? The Lord answered, Judah will be first. Does that remind anybody of anything in book of Judges? Chapter 1, absolutely. In chapter 1, we've got them asking, inquiring of the Lord. Inquiring of the Lord's good, isn't it? And I said, who will go first? And the answer was Judah. Okay. So you've heard me talk a lot about bookends. Okay. This is an example of the bookend where you see things from the front and things from the back, and it holds the story together. Just as there's an emphasis a lot on Benjamin and its evil, we see a lot of emphasis on Judah and it being mostly good. And who was from the tribe of Judah? David. That's another reason why I think the book of Judges was written to bolster his reign. Okay, so Judah will be first. Well, based upon chapter 1, you inquire of the Lord, and he says Judah will go first. Judah went in chapter 1. Was Judah successful? Yes. In the morning, the Israelites set out, camped near Gibeah. The men of Israel went out to fight against Benjamin and took their battle positions against Gibeah. The Benjamites came out of Gibeah and slaughtered 22,000 men of Israel on the field that day. But the Israelite troops rallied again and took their battle positions in the same place where they positioned themselves on the first day. They went up, wept before the Lord until evening, and inquired of him, should we attack our brothers, the Benjamites? And the Lord answered, fight against them. Why did they lose the first time? That's the conundrum in this. We're going to keep going. Remember, keep asking, is Israel right in what they're doing? Okay, verse 24. On the second day, the Israelites advanced the Benjamites. That same day, the Benjamites came from Gibeah to meet them and slaughtered an additional 18,000 Israelites on the field. All were armed. The whole Israelite army went to Bethel, where they wept and sat before the Lord. So they lose the first battle. Let's back up. They inquire of the Lord. He says, Judah loses. They inquire of the Lord, and they lose again. Now look what's else going on. Verse 26. The whole Israelite army went to Bethel, where they wept and sat before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. Then the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days, the Ark of the Covenant was there. And Phinehas, son of Eleazar, we'll get to him in a little bit, son of Aaron, was serving before it. The Israelites asked, should we fight again against our brothers, the Benjamites, or should we stop? The Lord said, fight, because I will hand them over to you tomorrow. Okay, so inquire of the Lord, lose the first battle. Inquire of the Lord again, lose the second battle. Inquire of the Lord again for the third one, they're going to win. If they were doing the right thing, why did they keep losing the battles even though they inquired of the Lord. That's the conundrum of this chapter. I think there's an answer we have to interject into the text by the facts that we have there. But why do you think, possibly, why, even though they inquired of the Lord, they failed twice, miserably? Is
There in Richmond, the Levite, he did cut off his concubine. There were people there in Judah who weren't exactly righteous people either.
okay.
And maybe God was getting rid of some of those unrighteous people. I mean, it's speculation.
It is speculation, and my answer is going to be speculation too.
None of them were perfect.
That's true. Anybody else? Leon.
Here, conundrum is why would these people die to defend Sodom?
Because they're family. The people of Gibeah were Benjamites. Do family members often do ridiculous things to protect their own? Yeah. That's my answer for that. Again, it's speculation. That's my answer for that. Sherilyn, your hand was raised.
Just off the top of my head, but the Israelites were not sitting at the feet of Jesus very well at the time either. I mean, both parties had drifted. I guess would be a good word to say. And again, God was not as kind as he was to Gideon and those folks. But again, it was a different attitude, I think.
Okay.
Two guilty sides, actually.
Paul?
Well, this time they actually had say qualified, priest.
Right.
Bringing their petition to God.
Right.
And their actions were what they should have done.
Anybody else? Okay, here's my answer, and it's not different from what anybody else has said. It's just going to be phrased with my own words. Was Israel right for doing what they did, even though they failed and twice? Were Israel right in what they did? Yes. So why did they fail? And here's a lesson for us all. Just because we are doing something right does not mean necessarily we ourselves are right with God. Even if we go through some of the steps, they inquired of the Lord. But when they finally do win, what else do we see them doing? They fasted, they sacrificed, they wept, they went to the Ark of the Covenant where there was a righteous priest, and then they inquired of the Lord. Okay, so there's a book that I read a long time ago, and some books just stick with you. And this book was called Lord, Change Me. And the whole idea with the book is we're constantly trying to change other people. Well, the 11 tribes of Israel, they were trying to change. In other words, they were trying to do that which was right. They were in the right. They knew what they were doing was right. The other people were wrong, and they were going to punish them for it and everything. And the whole idea of the book was stop praying that the Lord will change other people and start praying that the Lord will change you. The reason why they failed, and again, this is my speculation. The reason why they failed, they were doing the right thing, but there was something wrong with them. Even though they were, quote, religious, they were, weren't they? But what do we find that Israel often did, even in the book of Judges? Who else did they worship? Yeah, the other gods. Okay? They needed to work on themselves. Do you remember what happened after the scene of the Mount of Transfiguration? Jesus came down. His disciples couldn't do what? Yeah. And then, Peter said, hey, let's build tabernacles. And God said, this is my beloved Son, listen to him. When they came down from the mountain, there was a group of people, and the disciples were trying to do what? But they kept failing. Everybody turn to Matthew chapter 17. Put a marker back here in Judges. Okay, verse 14. When they reached the crowd, a man approached and knelt down before him. Lord, he said, have mercy on your son because he has seizures, on my son, because he has seizures and suffers terribly. He often falls into the fire and often into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but what? They couldn't heal. They failed. Did Judah fail the first time? Did Judah fail the second time? Did Judah fail the third time? No. When you have the third time, they started working on themselves, remember? They fasted. They offered sacrifices. It got more serious. Jesus replied, you unbelieving and perverse generation, how long will I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring him here. Then Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of him from that moment, and the boy was healed. Then the disciples approached Jesus privately and said, why couldn't we drive it out? He said, because of your little faith. For truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will tell this mountain, move from here, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And in verse 21, I know not all translations have it because based on different manuscripts. Verse 21, however, this kind does not come out except for by what? Prayer and fasting. Back in Judah, they fasted and sacrificed. They worked on themselves. Maybe one day we'll study the question of fasting. I do believe it is a biblical thing to do. And one of the reasons is, Lord, don't try to change them. I'm not going to pray for that anymore. Yes, it's in Matthew 17. Yeah. Hey, at least her phone's listening to me. Yeah. It wasn't an NFL theme song either on Sunday. That's right. Okay. Let's go back to Judges chapter 20 before we quit for the day. We will finish on Wednesday, and on Sunday, we start the new study. And I hope you've really enjoyed studying Judges. You told me that you've never studied it before like this. I'm having a lot of fun. But But my wife has told me when I have a lot of fun, other people aren't. And I hope you've enjoyed the material that I've handed out. And again, I have more. If you want all of it, let me know. Well, I guess we're out of time. So we'll start in verse 20 on Wednesday, and we will finish the chapter, even if I have to stop talking in order to do it. Thank you very much.